That was not.
Liar.
Think. We're good? Because the light's not on, but we're good. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Scarborough Board of Education Workshop. The date is Thursday, December 18th, 2025. Can everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I hear myself talking from the heavens.
Now what do we do?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for
Oh my gosh,
all.
we're gonna be on delay the whole night. It's gonna be.
This is something.
Come on.
No. Oh, Grace got it. Oh.
Down in the bottom right, next to the Wi-Fi symbol. Keep going to the right. Volume is that bottom bar down there.
Oh, that's. Testing, 1, 2, 3. That's.
The only issue is we probably won't hear Freyla if she says anything.
Minor issue.
Did you just mute?
I'm not sure that's a bad thing. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Volume down, not the.
Yeah, that has to remain on.
Yeah, yes, yeah, hear you.
Just turn the volume back up.
All right, now, just start talking, see if there's any.
Hello, hello, hello? Hello?
Oh.
Hi Shannon, can you hear me? Are you talking to me?
We're just testing,
Okay.
but what's in the
That
background?
was real time.
That seemed like it was real for me.
Yeah, I just heard myself
There's a
again.
delay.
There's a delay.
It's like a 15-20 second delay.
Real.
Oh.
We're on a delay.
Do you still have the live stream hooked up on the computer? You know how you have to shut the box app, you have to close that out after you hook on to live stream? That could be it.
Okay.
Just.
Like, can you go? Close out of that and then just look at what's on camera. Anything else is something. Yeah.
That's me.
Right now. Jana, go ahead.
Hello, hello, test, test, test. Test, test, test.
Trailer, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Still getting the echo, I just heard Shannon again.
Yep, oh, there's Ray again.
Yes, but we're getting an echo also.
From her?
We need to back out and start again.
Is the echo just with her? 1, 2, 3, test, 1, 2. There's no echo there, so it's Freyla. She can lower her mic. Or mute it until she has to talk.
It was muted.
Okay, there it is, so it's a delay.
Yeah,
She is muted.
Delay.
it's a delayed.
It's a delay.
Now we're gonna hear. Like
It's a
5
delay.
times.
Zoom delay.
It's gonna be a circular.
This is all to say we should just be eating cake right now.
Should I go and cut it?
Try starting
Yeah, you
again.
are.
Go ahead and cut while we're waiting.
Doesn't look like we're conducting any.
Yeah, try it now. 1, 2, 3.
Of course, now it's gonna work.
No, that was it.
I was thinking, I was wondering. if it was like-
We may have it.
Okay, let's try it now.
I should just run my hand right across. No,
It's because I said, let's see.
You got it to fix. Oh, and it smells so good too. Mm. All right. We good?
We think we are.
Okay. Sorry, thank you, Katie, for your patience, and thank you, everybody, for your patience. Agenda item 4.0 is new business. 4.1 is how does the district utilize data and processes to inform curriculum and instructional moves? So we'll turn it over to Katie.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you for having me here tonight. I'll just start by saying this, I don't anticipate this conversation. I haven't prepared as many slides as I would during like a typical assessment overview. But I think we'll be able to walk through some of the conversation, and I'm excited to share some specific examples of how data is used in processes across the district to inform our decisions when we talk about curriculum and instruction. So to begin, I just want to talk about the different ways decisions are made and where they're made. Decisions are made every single day at the classroom level, school level, district level. I actually once saw a study that the average elementary classroom teacher makes more decisions today than the average air traffic controller. So decisions are made every day at a high volume, and many of those include decisions around data and how it can inform the instruction they're delivering in the moment or preparing for in the coming days. Decisions are obviously impacted by data at the school level and at the district level in our processes around curriculum review and instructional strategies, as well as the professional development that we deliver. So I think of it as really two different approaches that we tend to come at problems with. The first is that we might be curious about something. We may be observing a phenomenon in the classroom in the way kids are performing in their instruction and assessments, or we may be curious about how we might better a system or a process. And we say, what data do we have about that? Let's look at that data. What can we collect? What is available to us? What might we want to collect? And then the other approach is to say, here's the data we do collect. What is that data telling us? And what can we get curious about and uncover more? So regardless of the two approaches, whether we are curious and look at data or we look at data and we get curious, those approaches inform decision-making with very specific things involved. The first being, can we form specific questions? Let's be really concrete about what we are wondering about and asking about so that the data that we are bringing in and the conversations we're having are specific and tied to that question. The other piece is determining the available and desired data that would help us answer that question. So sometimes it is we've collected data and we know that we want to look at that. And other times it is what data do we wish we had available? Did we collect that data? Is that something we should look at collecting? So a great example is that desired data is a question we often talk about in curriculum review. We're in math review right now, and we don't collect any specific data from our students, for example, on their procedural fluency with algorithms. That's not a formative assessment that we collect regularly to see how they're progressing with their procedural skills. But that could be if that's something that we wanted to look at and consider how that might impact the instruction around math. So that's one example.
what's a procedural skill?
Oh, like the ability to multiply, add, divide, subtract.
Okay, gotcha.
There's a fluency to that. So an automaticity and accuracy that's necessary in order for kids to not use all of their working memory, stopping to say, okay, 5 + 5 is,
Mhm.
right? They just know it's 10 because of the mental mathematics practices they've engaged in. So when we know kids are doing really well, for example, with procedural fluency, they can give their brain power over to the more complex problem solving, like word problems, because they're not focused on the procedures. So that can inform instruction and how we approach that. The other thing that we try to do is use a repeatable protocol so that as we approach data, we approach it in similar ways every time. And I'll share a protocol that we use pretty regularly. It's not always applicable to every question we ask, but it's applicable to really great overview conversations that allow us to talk about data and how it can inform instruction without us going too far up the ladder of inference and making up stories that don't exist. And then the other thing that I think is really important in our approach is that we're constantly considering how we build data literacy for everyone so that there's autonomy in the approach. So for example, if teachers really understand the data they're collecting, for example, the main through year as it compares to the teacher's colleagues learning record, as it compares to high frequency words, as it compares to our comprehensive phonics survey, then they understand how those assessments work together to provide multiple lenses to the same instruction, which is reading. So building that data literacy takes professional development, it takes repeated conversations, and it takes practice. And that's really important. So those repeatable conversations are being baked into our everyday professional practices in order to build that autonomy and that literacy. So these are some examples of possible data we might gather, many of which I was able to pull right from the top of my head. And then a few more were generated by our leadership team that I was like, oh yeah, that also, because we collect a lot of data. And this is just a snapshot of like, this is 2 minutes worth of thinking. There's so much more than this. So we have a lot of data available to inform curriculum and instruction. It's really important that we're thoughtful about how we use it, when we use it, and why we're using it to inform instruction. So I'll just let you take a look at that. It's important to remember too that the data isn't just related to assessments we collect about students. Data also might mean evidence-based research practices that have data around their impact and effectiveness in research studies. So I would consider that applicable data to informing our instruction or our curriculum. So that things like that are also listed up there.
What is Dial 4?
Dial 4 is the screener we use with our kindergarten students. It gives us information on our incoming students. So we specifically use the speed dial in Scarborough, but that generally covers motor skills, concepts, and some language pieces to help us identify students' entry points in total.
And that's part of like a child's find requirement that we have, right? Through the Department of Education. So it's not just we're registering kids and they're starting kindergarten, but we always go back to see, like, are there any discrepant skills so that we can plan appropriately for kids as they come to school.
Additional support.
Yep.
Mhm. And it also helps us think forward. So for example, some of our early interventionists who we've added in the last couple of years might look at the dial and then observe in the classroom and be able to form some small groups for fine motor skills because students need more practice with holding the pencil, cutting, gluing, those more intricate skills. And that the dial for information about motor skills might give some insight into who to pay attention to provide that extra support. So one of the protocols, probably the protocol we use the most in discussing data is adapted from the National School Reforms Atlas Protocol. And there are 5 steps, and we've used this at all levels. So we've used this with classroom teachers and teaching teams, with grade level wide, building based. So teams that include, for example, classroom teachers, academic support, social workers, like a child's full educational team. We've used it with administrators to look at data. And it's a really simple but beneficial process. So the first step is to just look at the data and describe the data. We're not making any assumptions or interpretations. We're just saying, what do we see? And being really concrete with what is factually present in the data. From there, we can begin to interpret the data and make some wonderings or noticings about the data. And then from there, we can say, what would the implications for our practice be? What would this mean for our students, and how might it change, enhance, modify instruction in order to help us make instructional moves that improve practice and improve student outcomes? We then reflect on the implications for practice and consider what is in place that will help us be successful, what barriers might we need to break down in terms of additional professional development or collaboration, time for planning, those kinds of things. And then we end by debriefing the process, because we're always looking to make that process better. What questions did we ask? What questions should we ask in the future? Should we go back and collect a little more data and do this again? So that's a protocol that we use really repeatedly. So I did pull together, I think I have 3 examples from across the district of ways we've used data to inform curriculum and instruction in just the last couple of years. So this is a primary district level example. The curriculum review team for literacy convened, and they made recommendations last year regarding small group instruction. When small group instruction is focused on skill acquisition, it has a really high impact on student achievement. And coupling that with conversations that we had with K2 educators in data meetings, we found that students were really doing well with their phonics in isolation, but we weren't seeing major increases in their reading ability as a result of that. It was really mixed. For some, it was really good. For others, it seemed to not be a strong correlation. And one of the things we wondered in looking at that is, could we have a greater impact if there was a more distinct application of those phonics skills in their reading? So we used those data points to make a decision. It was a recommendation of the ELA team to make the decision to purchase small group decodable texts. So we purchased multiple copies of texts that are highly decodable. They're between 80 and 90% decodable for our kindergarten and first and second graders. And they are aligned to our phonics program. So we use from phonics to reading, and we purchased Tegrity, which we also use for phonemic awareness. And combined, that scope and sequence allows us to say, okay, if students are learning their short vowel sounds, I can then have them read a text for instruction during the instructional period that's focused on short vowel sounds, and they can take the skills they learned discreetly in the lesson and apply it in their actual reading. And so that was a purchase that allowed us to provide not just that small group instruction as a practice, which is an excellent practice, but also to marry our work with phonics to the application of reading. So that also came with a high level of professional development that happened over the summer and through the fall. And so I'm really excited to see what the outcome of that is. And I think we'll begin to see that from both the data and from teachers' feedback in our next data conversations about how they feel like that's going in terms of students beginning to apply their phonics skills in the reading using decodables. So I'm really excited about that. So that was a data-driven decision around curriculum purchase.
Okay, I'm sorry, can we, I stop just 1 second. So the data that was seen was that the kids, what you weren't seeing was a large increase in literacy test scores. So that was when you go back to the previous, so that was your data.
Application of skill.
Yeah,
right?
so there was a disconnect there.
Yeah, not for every student, right? Like
Right, yeah,
some
sure.
grow by leaps and bounds, and then others who receive the exact same instruction we don't see evidence of them applying those phonics skills to their reading. But the skills the books we were having them read weren't guaranteed to be highly decodable.
What is decodable?
Decodable means that a student can apply their phonics skills to decode the sounds. So if a student knows that the letters CAT say k, at, they can decode, that's decoding, they can look at the letters and use their sounds to figure out the word.
Okay.
Which is a skill we need every kid doing, right? That's the
Sure,
basis of
sure.
reading. And so these books have a high level of decodability, 80 to 90% in the kindergarten books, it's about 90% of the words are words that kids can decode. So there won't be, for example, long vowel sounds. Those vowels won't be saying their name, A-E-I-O-U, they'll be saying but they're taught those first, right?
Right,
And so it matches their instruction.
gotcha.
So for example, if I were to give a book to kids in kindergarten that's called Kate Rides a Bike, Kate and rides and bike are all sounds they've not been introduced to.
Sure.
Right? And so they're struggling to apply their phonics because they're not encountering the words that they've been taught how to read.
Because they're being taught cat and.
Yeah, so
bat,
if it's
and
like
the
cat
small-
and gnat
Yeah,
go to bat,
yeah, so.
they can
yeah,
decode
can
all
do
of
that.
those, or they're high frequency words like go and
Yeah.
do.
So you're linking the.
Instruction to the reading.
Exact phonic instruction, and then those texts mirror though, so that
Yeah.
they can apply
Yeah.
directly the lessons.
Like that opportunity for practice,
Okay,
right?
gotcha.
So like we're teaching the skill and then kids
Mhm.
are, engaged in practicing and testing out to see if it bridges from here to here.
And Kate Rides a Bike would come later,
Right.
like after they've
Yeah.
established the first
That might be
round
like
of.
a
right.
late kindergarten, early first grade skill, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And
Like
then they
if
begin.
silent letters, right? That's
Yeah,
at a different tier.
yeah, like a different level.
Yeah.
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 So then, you saw the data, the need, the curriculum review committee suggested these books, we bought these books. And then how long will it be until we see if these are successful? Like, when do you next collect the data? Is it next year or
So
how does that work?
we collect data regularly.
Mhm.
At K2, we collect the data on a timeline of approximately every 12 weeks, so once a trimester. We do a formal data collection. So that includes iReady. And then depending on the grade level, there's some local assessments we do. It generally includes information on phonics, their high frequency words, and their reading level. So we'll do that again late January, early February. They've just begun to include these books, so I don't know to what extent we'll see information there in terms of the data. And then we'll do it again in May. And we'll do it 3 times next year. So as teachers become more confident and competent with those new books, because they've engaged in professional development. So right now, they're really beginning to use them and get confident with those lessons. I think we'll begin to see the students have that reinforcing opportunity to apply the skills that they're learning from phonics into their books. And it will solidify those phonics skills a lot faster. It's really exciting.
Yeah, yes.
The next example we have already seen come to fruition, and I've talked about it previously, but I'm going to bring us back to it because it is a specific example that I've mentioned before and I think was done to great effect. So this is kind of a different approach, which is we have data and we got curious about what's going on there. So that previous to last year, the Maine through year assessment results on the state side, where they talk about whether students are well below, at, or above state averages, were not where we wanted them to be, particularly in 8th grade, who on average fell into the below category. The math educators were not up for review yet, but they had come to me in that it was a 6th to 8th grade mixed team. And they said, we think that combined with our curiosity about this data, we think that what we're seeing in class and their performance on in-classroom assessments and the data around that, we think we can make some changes to the scope and sequence that will do 2 things. It will make more sense in terms of the move from algebra topics and algebra into algebra. That there's a different scope and sequence that will really help solidify their skills in that class, so that we're not ending the year with a topic unrelated to algebra. I think they were ending with something like probability. Instead, we're ending with an algebra related skill, and then they're going into algebra topics or algebra 1, which happens in 8th grade. And we think that that might positively impact the scores. So we made that change in the summer of 2024. So for the 2024-2025 school year, that unit change was a team decision from the 6th through 8th grade team. And last year in the 2025 spring results, our 8th grade students were at grade level on the main through year for the first time. So that was exciting. So I think like that's a great example where they got curious about the data in front of them. They said, there are things we know about our scope and sequence and what students need to be ready for the next grade level. And we think that if they leave 7th grade discussing this topic that's related to pre-algebra or algebra 1, they're going to be better prepared to enter that class in the 8th grade, because the scope from that topic being discussed in, say, December to the next September isn't as large now, because we ended with it instead in May. And so that sets students up for a better entry point in terms of their memory, their working memory. So that was a great example of teachers using that data. Another district-wide example that's really at the classroom level is the way in which our instructional coaches across the district engage teachers in their student-centered coaching cycles. So I don't have like a specific example, because that data would be specific to the coaching cycle between an instructional coach and a teacher, but the cycle itself is based on the data that they collect. So in our student-centered coaching cycles, instructional coaches meet with a teacher and they set and plan specific goals related to standards that have to include assessments. Those assessments and that measurement of growth are vital to the conversation of the coaching cycle. So they say, what do we want to see students know and be able to do by the end of our coaching cycle? How will we measure that? And then we're going to pre-assess and post-assess. And that data is used to help make decisions around how the instructional strategies a teacher might use in order to see that measurable success. And that's how the coaches support the coaching of those strategies. So they may go in and they may co-teach, they may model, they may provide observation and then reflection and co-plan, but they always do it around that data. So what do we want them to know and be able to do? What are they showing us right now? Where do we want to take them and how will we get them there? And then the coach coaches them through that with the instructional strategies. So that pre-post data is always present in that coaching cycle. And that's constant and ongoing. And we have coaches K to 12. That's part of the regular practice. And then lastly, in talking with the leadership team, they were really quick to say, oh, this and this and this and this and this and this. So I captured a few for us just to look at. High school says we regularly review a variety of data when we make course reconsideration decisions. Wentworth immediately recollected that the SPIRE instruction for our striving readers is a curriculum that was purchased based on the literacy data. It's also an evidence-based program, so there is research data behind that program and its effectiveness. Teachers, one of the special education directors said teachers routinely advocate in IEPs for referrals for least restrictive environment, because intervention data is showing academic success and growth. And so they advocate to keep the student in academic support rather than pursuing an IEP because the student is growing and learning and the data shows that. our chronic absenteeism and truancy data drives the district processes around outreach and school avoidance interventions. And teachers every day are forming small group instruction or targeted instruction in the classroom using diagnostic informative assessment data. So what happens, it's nuanced, the data is collected and the questions are considered for each individual teacher in the classroom. It is specific to their content, to their instruction, but then it also is part of the bigger macrocosm of our district as well. It's something we consider in multiple processes across the district, certainly in the curriculum review and curriculum purchases. And I think we could continue to come up with example after example, because it is really kind of at the heart of the approaches that we take.
It's impressive. I think, the math, the example and the phonics example that teachers, instructors, and the district levels would have been very thoughtful. Where you're investing in how you're changing structures.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think one of the things that's really important is that it isn't the data alone, that teaching perspective of the everyday classroom instruction is so valuable. And that's not always captured in numbers and on paper, but they're so knowledgeable about, and the math is like such a great example. So is the phonics really, right? Of
Right,
like,
they really
we
thought,
see
yeah,
this,
yeah.
the data kind of confirms this, we
Yeah.
think we want to make a change. And one of the things that I really love is that when we have data we collect regularly, I think teachers are willing to take a little bit of a risk because they know they're going to see the results of that and can check and adjust and either reinforce really good practice or say, with a little more tweaking, I think we can get there. And that should be a regular practice for teachers. And I really see people engaging in that. Those are two really concrete examples.
And I think it also speaks to like the value of what we call triangulating the data, right? Like, so there's no one piece of data that is like, oh, this is, absolutely what we have to work from. As Katie's already pointed out, right? We might utilize assessment data as an example, but then we say to the classroom teacher, how is this reflected in day-to-day practice with that student? What's your observational data, right? Even though that might not be a number about the student's ability, and really trying to use that big picture to help us to be able to make those decisions, right? So we're never quick to just say, oh, the number says this, and so therefore we do that, right? That's the beginning of the conversations that we have collectively with staff.
Well, I think even I just keep thinking about when we worked on our cell phone policy, right? So we had data. So I think it was an interesting conversation when we think of this, because we had national data saying one thing. And so, trying to relate that to Scarborough, we then collected Scarborough data that was a little bit different, but then we also went, or many of us went and observed, right? We went to the lunchroom, we observed, we saw what we saw, and, we heard from the students. So we had this we kind of did it our own.
It's multifaceted.
Yeah, our own triangulation and our own data collection, and that's how we arrived where we arrived too.
Yeah, you're not using data blindly, you're putting it in context and understanding it, how it really relates to your students. Yeah.
Right, so we can be the most thoughtful in planning forward.
Just out of curiosity, when the curriculum review meets, has there ever been any look at, and this is more of a personal question, but has there been a look at, the difference in scores and, data collection when we use online textbooks versus, actual cracking the book, looking at a textbook?
No, that's my first answer. No, we don't do that. And I think my first thought is we wouldn't do that because it would be really hard to determine, because generally speaking, and I'd have to go and look at the licenses, but generally speaking, I think both are available. And so students, maybe our students can answer this, can make decisions about whether they choose the physical copy or the online copy. And so I think that would become really difficult to determine because I get the impression from educators that students choose both, right? Like in the classroom, I might pull open a physical textbook, but we all remember if we were students in the past where those electronic copies were not available, our backpacks were incredibly heavy. And so a lot of students choose not to take those home, and so they would access the online version. So I think that would be difficult to suss out completely.
I've always been curious as to the
Because
level
they have
of-
access to both, right?
Yes, and I've
So I
always,
don't think we could differentiate to any real degree, which is having an impact
Yeah.
because any student can access both at any time. And that's a daily choice. That's
Yeah.
not a,
Can we
Right?
link it to a year when we started, previous that year, we didn't have any online?
I don't.
I
I
mean,
don't-
we've had online textbooks for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, and that really was driven by companies, right?
Yeah.
Because they're able to make changes in real time
Right.
with their products to a higher extent than with physical textbooks, right? And then there are other issues that present themselves with physical textbooks. You lose your textbook, now you don't have one, now we have to pay $75 or, you know, whatever the cost is to replace that.
Right.
If it's online and it's in this, you know,
Right, you can always access it again.
right, and from a teacher standpoint, in terms of planning and designing instruction, access to those kinds of resources really opens up a lot of avenues to, you know, I'm planning an assessment. I can look at what the publisher has for ideas, but it's not that mimeograph worksheet
Right.
that had 30 examples that, you know, our teacher might have been crossed out all the even ones, right? Our teachers have the ability to, you know, just self-select and say, I'm gonna pull these 10 things because they most align, or something like that, right?
Yeah, I've always been curious about the comprehension and the ability to retain and learn between the two. I was a very late, I'm really not even an adopter of using like e-readers or, I love a book. And so I think just personally, it's always interested me. I wonder if there's a difference.
Yeah, but I guess I would ask, like, I was operating on the assumption when you asked the question, it was about textbook
Yes,
versus like reading novels.
yes, I'm
Because those
asking
are two
about,
different
I'm
skills.
asking about textbooks because
Yeah.
I don't love to read a book on,
Mhm.
and so it's always made me
Yeah.
wonder, what is the comprehension level when students are reading off of a online textbook? Is there a difference?
Yeah, is there an ability, do they absorb information better?
Correct.
With the,
With an actual book in their
Right.
hands versus. Yeah. But I can see that that would be tough if they can have access to both. Yeah.
I appreciate the question. I'm not sure how we go about
Yeah.
delineating that without perhaps creating like an action research study of
Yeah.
which could disservice some students who need the digital text or vice versa. So,
And actually 10 years is probably not long enough, right? Like, I think about
Yeah.
online.
Yeah, I remember.
I'm really dating myself now, right?
And there aren't any
Because I'm going
assessments
back to
that are
at least 15 years.
Yeah.
You're doing, you can pull same assessment.
Well, yeah, and that's the
15 years.
problem with
That's
the
the other-
assessment's always changing, right? Like
Right.
this is, you
Yeah.
can't
Have
go
to stay
back.
relevant.
There is no,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
it's very difficult.
That's a good question.
Other questions that you have about data?
What, I think, Jillian, what were you saying?
No, I was just going to tag on to what you were saying. I mean, it's been a while because from the first time I went, you know, I did a graduate degree to my second go round. And like 90% of my textbooks were online and, you know, I think, even then when we would print stuff off, we wanted to highlight or have something.
Yeah.
But do, like, Cause the kids come home, I feel like my kids might have cement blocks in their bags, if they don't have textbooks, but like there's a mix now, right, for at least the high school, right?
In terms of physical textbooks,
Yeah.
yeah, they have access to them, right?
Okay.
In the
But if I'm taking, you know, AP Bio and Geometry and
Yeah.
Civics, and I have homework for all three, and I might take one or two textbooks
Right.
home, but not, right?
Right.
So we have two students right here that can speak to us about that.
Yeah,
What's
what
your
do you think
experience?
when you use the?
I use like a mix. So I usually use just the online textbooks, but because like they're so heavy. But I know it's a lot of personal preference. Like lots of my friends prefer using a physical textbook. And also like for different, but for tests, if we have like online tests, our teachers always have like physical hard copy texts as well. Because I think lots of students recognize which they work better on. And so that's usually just what they tend to use. But I use the online textbook because I can use it anywhere without having to lug it around.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, so for most classes you get, your Chromebook has you load up it's already loaded. Is it in the classroom that these textbooks are available, or you can ask to have one, leave it in your locker?
Like we get a physical textbook for each class, but like I just search up a PDF for the textbook somehow. Or some teachers like link it to their classroom.
Yeah, I'm just curious, but if someone wants a physical textbook, how do
Right.
they get it?
We get one at the start of the year for every
Okay.
class.
Okay,
You can also go request one from the teacher,
okay.
like, cause some classes don't have enough textbooks to offer to every student, so
Right.
it's like by request.
My daughter is a junior. She carries her bag everywhere, school. She has every book. When she gets home, she never opens that bag. It's just her computer. So she will have the books in class
Who brings
and at
her bag,
home.
carrying
It's
it?
all computer.
Yeah.
She carries them home, but she still uses the
She's
computer.
got the
Working
plan.
for us.
She does, she uses it the whole time. And I'm checking, like, why do you carry this around? She's like, I need my books, Dad. I'm like, but you don't use them at home. Oh, I need them at school. Put them in your locker. I don't have a locker. I can't use a locker. Won't use a locker.
I do have a question, sort of pre and post COVID. What do we see about district level, about how, or obviously assessments have changed, so we don't have apples to apples. But do you see assessment sort of any kind of bounce back, or was there a decline in terms of our district? Sort of just that, the metrics that are, measured by the state,
I mean, that's something that, like, I think we could easily provide for you so that
Yeah.
you could do some of that
Yeah.
review, because like, we give a year-to-year update about
Right,
that.
right.
So I don't know that we came prepared
Oh, yeah,
with
no,
that
I'm just-
information
yeah,
this
no, that's
evening,
all
but we
sorry.
could certainly show
Yeah.
you over time.
Yeah.
What that has been looking like.
I just thought off the top of your head, if you had any thoughts about that, but obviously, sorry, I don't expect you to have that data.
Right.
Yeah, I would say absolutely go to the June workshops. The last 2 years I've done them in June. I don't recall the date of the first one. It's early June, June 26th. Last year
Okay.
was the last one we did.
Okay,
And those are workshops that are about an hour long, really comprehensive, and give an overview of all of the literacy, math, and science data.
okay.
So I highly recommend taking a look at that because it does have some historical.
Okay, perfect, okay.
And if anyone is ever curious too, the school website as well as the state operates what's called the ESSA dashboard, which contains all of the public information, not just for Scarborough Public Schools, but for all of the schools in the state of Maine. And you can look at Maine's aggregate data overviews historically and for the current year, as well as Scarborough's and any other surrounding districts you may want to look at as well. So that's linked under the curriculum and instruction website under assessment. We've just created some new tabs, Mr. Butler and I, in the last couple of days, because we're adding some things to the curriculum site. But it is under the assessment tab. I just looked at it yesterday. And you can also get to it just by searching Maine ESSA dashboard. One of the things I really love, a little hidden but public trick, is that there is what looks like a www up in the corner. And from there, you can get into the database and say, I want to look at Scarborough and I want to look at all of Cumberland County, for example, and it will populate all of that data for you. I want to look just at this subject, just at this year, all the years, all the subjects. It's a little more easily manipulated than the dashboard itself. So it's a little insider trick.
www.
Yeah, it's got a little icon that looks like a www in the corner. So that's all publicly available and it goes back, I believe, to 21, 22 right now.
Oh, okay, so
They've
it doesn't go before COVID.
I don't recall off the top of my
Okay.
head.
I think you could find Scarborough data pre-COVID on our website.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, thank you.
That's always a helpful sign.
Any other questions?
And say the last slide.
Oh.
Questions. We
We're
missed that one, but we're there.
We are there.
Can I ask how foreign language falls into the curriculum? Like, because I know that there's not like, through the year or any, I read.
Yeah, that's a
for
great
foreign
question.
languages.
So one of the chief pieces of data we look at for world language is the seal of biliteracy rates, because while we would love all students to have opportunities to be exposed to multiple languages and through that some of the culture, the opportunity to become bilingual or multilingual is an incredible skill, right? And so our hope is to provide opportunities in the curriculum early enough and often enough that students have the opportunity to become bilingual or multilingual. So we actually monitor that seal of biliteracy rate. So that's an excellent question. I should add that to all of the data we collect because we did miss that one. And that is one that we do talk about every year. Yeah, great question.
Can you just touch really briefly on, I don't know that you were necessarily prepared for this, but we hear a lot about national rates and as it relates to math and science and reading and it's seems to me that it's a little difficult to compare ours to national. We have grades, like schools get grades and the US News and World Report, for example. And how are those types of things? I know parents monitor those rating scales pretty closely, but how are those formulated and what data is used to drive those rankings?
That's a great question, Shannon. I would say the best thing anybody could do is to go and find that information for themselves. The formulas are always going to be specific to whatever rating company is producing them. There's no one answer to that.
So they don't use the same across the
They
board?
absolutely do not use the same across the board. So what I would say is go and look at what site you're on and then try to find the information that beats that report. For example, in the US News and World Report, how they formulate the high school rankings is entirely different than they do the elementary ranking. So even within US News and World Report, those rankings do not use the same formula. So I would absolutely encourage whoever's looking at that to try to dig into the site and find what is producing that result.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you so much. This has been great. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we'll take a 10-minute break. I did forget to do the attendance. Ray, would you mind calling we're just out of order all over.
Ms. Jacobs is,
Is absent tonight.
Mr. Kelleher,
Yes.
Ms. Lindstrom,
Here.
Mr. Rockenstar, Mr. Pinion,
Here.
Mr. Pinihoff,
Here.
Ms. Riskina,
Here.
Ms. Claret.
All right, thank you so much. So if there are no objections, we will adjourn at 6:50 PM and come back in 10 minutes for our meeting. Jeez. Good evening and welcome to the Scarborough Board of Education Business Meeting. The date is Thursday, December 18th, 2025. Would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are we on delay here? Test. I haven't heard anything. I heard it, but I don't know if it was. It might have just been people that were a little behind. All right. Ray, agenda item 3.0 is attendance. Ray, can we call the attendance, please?
Ms. Jacobs.
She's absent.
Absent. Mr. Kelleher.
Here.
Ms. Lindstrom.
Here.
Mr. Rockistar.
Here.
Ms. Tarpanian.
Here.
Mr. Pini Hall.
Here.
Mr. Skeena.
Here.
Ms. Claret.
Here.
All right, thank you so much. Agenda item 4.0 is approval of the December 4th, 2025 business meeting minutes. With no objections, we will approve them as presented. Agenda item 5.0 are adjustments to the agenda. I have two adjustments. The first is under continuing business. I want to make a new 8.1, which will be the Scarborough Public Schools post-referendum building committee governance document. I'm bringing it forward again with some additional change requests. And then the second is on the agenda down at the bottom, you notice that there's an executive session. We are going to return to public session, but in public only, in person only, not online. So we will come back to adjourn, but we will not do that on Zoom. And that's just because we do have someone absent who was going to try to attend via Zoom, and we can't have the Zoom link that's in the public be used for that executive session. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the two adjustments as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? And that shows unanimous. Thank you so much. All right, agenda item 6.0 is a presentation. 6.1 is a middle school. So for this, we'll pass it over to you to invite Kathy up.
Yeah, so good evening. Really excited this evening to welcome our principal, Mrs. Taro, to speak with you tonight. And along with her is Dylan Nay, who is one of our instructional coaches at the middle school.
Yeah,
So-
thank you. Hello, I'm
Nice to
Kathy
hear from you.
Terrell, principal at the middle school. And I just want to ground the presentation in our building goals this year. And so one of our building goals is that we will be implementing the grade level social emotional lessons from Ruler. We will continue to embed the Ruler approach throughout the SMS community, fostering a more supportive, inclusive, and engaging learning environment that enhances both academic performance and social emotional growth. And then our other goal is to increase active engagement and transparent communication between SMS and the community to foster deeper and more meaningful connections. So what I'm going to share is a few of our action steps that we have taken so far this year. Okay, so this is our third year of implementation of the Ruler program. So for those of you who might be new or not, what that is, Ruler is a social emotional learning program and curriculum out of Yale University that has been implemented by Wentworth School and Scarborough Middle School. So in the first year, our focus was school-wide professional learning teams for teachers and staff to learn about the various tools that Ruler offers and how we experience emotions at work. So SMS staff learned about Ruler through a student lens to further assist with the development of the lessons. We had to learn how to recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate our own emotions before we could begin having conversations with students about their emotions. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, so last year, Ruler was implemented with students during crew on Mondays. It's a 30-minute period, and students had opportunities to learn various emotional vocabulary words, complete team building activities and learn the various tools to assist with recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, and regulating emotions. So now this year, we're implementing the grade level lessons, and we're continuing to use that Monday crew time. All 3 grade levels have the same 4 unit titles, just the lessons do differ by grade, and they build upon each other from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So the 4 units are the Community Safety and Climate unit. Unit 2 is Emotions Matter. Unit 3, Self and Social Awareness. And then Unit 4, Emotion Regulation and Personal Values. So during the month of September, in the first unit, students focused on creating grade level charters. So I don't know if you remember last year, we just had one school-wide charter. And staff gave a lot of input and said they really think that the students would like to create their own grade level. So the purpose of the charter is to create a safe and desirable climate. It's an agreement that establishes what the students want to feel and when they are together and how they will help each other to express those feelings. So what's interesting is out of the 3 charters, all 3 grades chose the words respected, included, and happy. And those were words that were on their charter last year. And the 6th and 7th graders chose the word safe. That was also a word on their charter. And I think it's really interesting in 8th grade, they came up with the word heard, that they want to be heard. And so one of the things we do is we do a lot of activities about, keeping the charter alive. And on our morning announcements, we'll have trivia questions, and students call into my office, and maybe they're the 4th caller, and then, they give their answer, and then we announce the answer, and they come and get their prize. So we do various things to keep it alive. So the next slide. Okay, so one of our new initiatives is Chris Murphy and I met with George Gooley this summer, and he runs the nonprofit organization Passion for Life, and he is passionate about outdoor activities. And so the nonprofit's goal is to introduce outdoor passions or activities to students, hoping that the activity might be something that they really want to pursue later in life, something that they hadn't had exposure to. So the organization does have 112 volunteers from our community who realize how lucky they were to have outdoor mentors. And so what we've done is during our Rise Enrichment period, and that period is an opportunity for students to maybe get some intervention help, also be retaught some content that they need, but also enrichment. And so every Thursday, we've had a volunteer come in, and part of our system is students can sign up for the teacher that they go to work with. So students have had an opportunity to sign up for this enrichment. And so you'll see in this picture, this was paddleboarding and surfing, and our volunteer was from Vessel Surf. Then if you want to go to the next slide. We've also had volunteers from the Apex Youth Connection, which is a biking organization, and they're out of Biddeford. Rogers Ski and Sport, Salt Pump Climbing Company. You'll see some pictures where students were learning some of the knots for climbing. We've had a golf professional from Nonsuch River Golf Club. We have had a Maine guide come in to do orienteering, and then a volunteer from Golf and Ski. So we'll continue throughout the rest of the year to have a different volunteer come in. So one of the things that was really fun when Sarah from Apex came in, she brought a mountain bike, and she also brought a mountain bike that has the blender on it and brought some healthy fruit and things. And so kids got to ride the mountain bike in order to make the blender go for their smoothie. So that was a lot of fun. Then if we want to go on to the next slide. So Wellness Day. I presented last year in December, so I only got to present up to that point and wasn't able to talk about Wellness Day, which we had in May. And when we're also going to work with Passion for Life on Wellness Day for this May and bring in more volunteers. But last year, we had brought it back after many years of not having a Wellness Day. It was well before COVID when we stopped that. So the day started with a keynote speaker, and we were very fortunate to be able to use Wentworth Gym. Our keynote speaker was Rohan Murphy, and we were able to bring him using our Hannaford Rewards donation. And our students connected with him. It was amazing. And he told his life story. He was born with a birth defect, and at age 4, he had to have his legs amputated. And doctors did tell him told his family that he'd never be able to take care of himself and would require 24-hour care. He worked so hard to overcome these challenges. And he told this story with a lot of detail about how when he was a freshman, he went and said, I want to wrestle. And so he started wrestling. And after a successful high school wrestling career, he went on to wrestle at Penn State University. Same thing, really pushed, went to the open tryouts. And then in addition to wrestling, he's an accomplished power lifter. He's competed in international competitions all over the world. So he shared this story and really talked about a lot of life skills, such as overcoming adversity, dedication, and discipline. And again, our students connected with him. They all went up to talk with him afterwards, and he was able to come to the middle school to talk with small groups later in the day. So after the keynote, we went back to the building, and students participated in sessions based on the multiple dimensions of wellness. And there was a mix of educational and active sessions, and we strove to give students opportunities to have new experiences. So some of the people that came in, a rugby clinic, the Shine Dance Fitness, Fire and Police Explorers came in, Salt Flat Dance, Gorham Bike and Ski hosted a bike ride on the Eastern Trail. We had mindfulness instructors and an instructor from East Yard CrossFit. So we're really looking forward to even expanding and bringing more people in. Okay, next slide. And so I just added this a few days ago because we had our SEF grants revealed. Was it Monday? Tuesday. It's on Tuesday. And so one of our grants is a Trails and Tree unit. And this was written by our 7th grade integrated studies pilot team. And so the project goals are to replenish and expand the resources for their maple sugaring unit, to build upon the first year successes, improve efficiencies in the experience, and expand direct learning opportunities for students within the unit. And they are going to plan, implement, and execute a unit on trail design and building to be delivered to the current pilot program students. And the goal of this project will be to develop a phase 1 trail system within the wooded area of the SMS campus with plans to enhance and refine in future years and to seek continued opportunities for school-wide use of the project results. And so the 7th grade teachers plan to partner with the Evergreen Outdoor Education, a nonprofit organization that focuses on the development of forestry and trail opportunities for Maine students K-12. The consultant, Will Libby, that runs the organization, has already met with the teachers multiple times and has shared the curriculum that he has developed that ties each module of the project to specific Maine state learning standards, tying in science and math while promoting civic engagement within the community. Will has agreed to work with them for the duration of this year, providing 3 on-site visits to work with students and staff, as well as unlimited access to his knowledge and resources throughout the project. They also plan to continue their partnership with the Scarborough Land Trust. They've worked with them for the past 5 years, and I think you probably remember last year I told you about how they came in and worked with them on just basic trail maintenance. And then they're collaborating with our instructional coaches, Kate Kuhn and Dylan Ney, to find additional opportunities to involve other teachers within the school that will benefit from the project. And we believe that many staff members will utilize the completed trail project in future years. So now I want to bring up Dylan Ney, and he's going to talk about 2 grants that he has written with the support of staff.
A lot of support. And they're very much connected to much of what Kathy was just talking about, specifically the integrated team. Again, I'm Dylan Ney. I'm an instructional coach at the middle school. Thank you for having me. Last time I was here a couple years ago, I didn't write anything down, and then I just rambled on for a while. So I'm hoping to ramble, but with an end in sight. So first, we're going to talk about the SEF grant for the laser cutter. This past May, I had the opportunity to join my colleagues up in Orono for the MLTI conference, colleagues and students, I should say. The conference focuses on technology being used in the classroom and brings together talented educators from all over the world and New England to share those innovations. I was lucky to be assigned randomly to Stephen Avery's laser cutter presentation. Stephen is a tech integrator from Bonnie Eagle, and he showcased a few of his laser cutters and shared the cool work that he was doing with his students and teachers in his district. The presentation was very impressive, but what he did next was what truly interested me in pursuing a grant to get a laser cutter at the middle school. Before the presentation, Stephen had pre-cut identical cardboard templates to hand out to each student. The templates were made up of many smaller pieces, similar to what's on the screen right now. Stephen gave the group one directive: build a catapult that can launch a marble as far as you can. The students began punching the pieces out of the template, having brainstorming sessions on how to proceed, implementing their plans, making tons of mistakes, correcting those mistakes, and then making more. The room was just energetic and vibrant and fun, and not a single marble was ever even in the air, which was really cool. What shocked me, and now it doesn't shock me so much now that I understand it, is when we went into the hallway and started shooting the marbles off, which was supposed to be the fun part, every single one of the designs was unique. They were all different, yet they were given the same materials. This is the beauty of engaging students in the engineering design process. It prepares our students to be ready for the unpredictable, to see a problem, attempt to solve it, reflect on what went wrong, and try again. We are lucky at the middle school to have 2 classrooms fully devoted to STEM teaching and 2 talented engineering teachers in Craig Hansen and Scott Daigle. This is a luxury for our kids, and the laser cutter will only enhance the great work that's already going on at the middle school. The laser cutter will be primarily used for material and project prep. This will allow our teachers to quickly mass produce design templates and pre-cut materials necessary to facilitate the learning I was just talking about. Our educators will utilize the laser cutter to prepare enough materials for an entire class to engage in design thinking, planning, and building. While this will be the cutter's initial and continued purpose, we intend to scale it beyond the STEM classrooms and allow students to design their own project using Tinkercad in science classrooms, art classrooms, wherever. Our outdoor learning initiatives continue to expand, as you've seen. As we look to build trail systems, outdoor learning spaces, and new garden spaces, the laser cutter can be used to support those projects, similar to some of the signage there. This is actually pictures of me, or I took in Rye, New Hampshire this past summer, where they were labeling the native plants, and there was a QR code in the printed piece of wood that people could scan and get more information about it. And I was instantly inspired. Simply put, the laser cutter will only be limited by our creativity and the creativity of our students. I want to thank the SEF for funding this project, and I want to encourage educators throughout this district to dream big and then apply for more money, because they do mean what they're saying when they meet with us at the beginning of the year and say, apply, we want them to give you money. And they do. So that's the laser cutter. Any questions about that? We can do questions later if we want to. I can go on to the next slide. The next one is also an ongoing project. This one started in August with the Climate Education Grant. Last year, we partnered with Main Tree Foundation to apply for the grant in hopes of funding staff professional development and purchase materials to effectively teach and meet academic standards outside. We believe this fit our current work, as you've seen, and it does, specifically the 7th grade integrated program, which was kind of the motivating factor in this. As I said, the work began in August with a 6-hour workshop hosted by Lena Ives from Main Tree Foundation. Main Tree is a nonprofit that focuses on forestry and climate education. Staff members, when you see here, from throughout the middle school came to explore some of Main Tree's curricular materials, collaborate on future units, and participate in some field activities here in Scarborough with the Scarborough Land Trust, specifically about invasive species. From there, we have hosted monthly 2-hour meetings focused on continued planning and implementation of climate and outdoor learning experiences. Some examples of the work being done would be expanding the invasive species unit in the 6th grade. They go to Higgins Beach and work with crabs, with the GMRI as well. Continued development of the integrated program you've heard so much about tonight. Expanding our garden spaces and how we use them for academic and social and emotional needs. Indigenous studies units that focus on the impact of logging on our local rivers. Connecting Wabanaki culture to literature that we already read with our kids, specifically Walk Two Moons. An ecology unit in the 8th grade that's being developed, and finally the development of a 7th grade unit on pollinators and their impact on essential Maine industries. As we look to 2026, we have begun to pivot from unit designs to creating outdoor learning spaces and researching materials essential to making those spaces viable. Our last meeting was just 2 days ago, and we invited Jen Stanchfield in to facilitate a gallery walk in which we brainstorm not only the essentials of outdoor classrooms, but the possibilities of them. We have a goal of having at least one functional space when the kids return to us in the fall of 2026. We're also excited to partner with Project Wild and offer up to 20 educators a day-long workshop with one of the facilitators in March. Project Wild is a national award-winning environmental and conservation education program for K-12 educators, offering hands-on activities and curriculum to teach students about wildlife, habitats, and responsible stewardship, fostering critical thinking and connection to nature through interdisciplinary units. Basically what I love. Each participant will walk away with their own book and a wealth of strategies to use with their students the next day. Our group will continue to meet through June when we plan to have another 6-hour culminating event to plan our next steps, because this is not the end of this process. I'd like to shout out a couple educators that have been working alongside with me: Kate Kuhn, Justin Pease, Emma Toth, Carrie Bracey, Amy Johnston, Kara Laflemme, Maura Lafond, Laurel Herendine, Ali Murtha, Jess Kelly, Katie Hutchinson, Jen Landez, and Ethan McGill. They've been incredibly devoted to the project. They are a talented group of educators willing to push their own boundaries for the singular purpose of benefiting the kids in Scarborough. It has been a lot of fun working with them, and I can't wait to see where we take it. That's all I have.
Very good. Thank you so much. Are there any questions for either Kathy or Dylan? No. Well, I just want to say I really appreciate your passion and your excitement for this. It's really it's awesome to see that from sitting up here and listening to what you're saying. It's obvious that you are doing exactly what you love. So thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming tonight. Thank you for presenting, and thank you for all you both continue to do.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item 8.0 is continuing business. The new 8.1 is the, pardon? Oh, thank you. Yes. Agenda item 7.0 is general public comment. Is there anyone, online wishing? If there's anyone online who's wishing to make public comment, if you want to raise your, little Zoom hand where it says raise hand.
That's our middle school assistant principal.
Yeah, I didn't know she was here to. She's probably here to listen to her colleagues. All right, is there anybody in person wishing to make general public comment? All right, seeing none, I will close general public comment. 8.0 is continuing business, and now the the new 8.1 is the governance document. Sorry, I'm just trying to find a pen that works here. There you go. Okay. So, the selection committee this week, we met to, select the members that are going to serve on the post-referendum committee from the community side. And if you recall, we initially, when we approved this, the second time, we approved 6 members of the community. What happened when we got in the room is that we had an absolute abundance of amazing talent that applied for this committee. And so we spent a few hours really kind of separating out. We received 24 total applications. And we separated out by category in which we had listed here in the book. We did end up, based on the experience we had, we did end up adding an 8th category, which was experience with building projects. So we did have quite a few that actually fell into that category as well. So we had the 8 categories, we put everybody where they belonged, and then we started talking. But as we were talking, it became very evident that we would need to come back and ask for some additional seats. In addition to that, if you recall, we heard earlier this week, actually it was late last week, from a community member that had gathered some information on behalf of some in the community. And one of the things that, one of the takeaways from that feedback was there seemed to be a disconnect between the number of community members serving versus the number of elected officials / district / town employees. And so what we thought we would do when we were looking at this is this gave us an opportunity to increase that number of community members that we're serving, which would allow us to align with the number of staff and elected officials that are serving. So where we landed was we would like to respectfully ask that you increase that number from 6 to 9. So it would be 9 community members. It would change the quorum from 8 to 10. And it would change the number of committee members to 18. The only other change that we made in here, just while we had it open, is under purpose. We did clean up one of the sentences. The second sentence, it says, this includes oversight and design and construction, the project budget and schedule related to the construction of the schools. So nothing else has changed. We have not contacted anyone else, anybody who we've selected, because we, of course, we're going to wait until the board approved this, or if they approved it. But we are really excited. I think I can speak on behalf of everybody that served. We're really excited about the committee that we have. And it's really exciting to see how much experience we have in Scarborough, in our own backyard.
Absolutely.
Are there any questions for John or myself or Diane? She was the,
So you said a total number of people on the committee would be 18.
yes.
What
because
if
we're gonna-
there was a tie? Is there a situation for tiebreakers for if anything in the committee needs to be voted on? Would that be brought to the board?
Well, anything would come to the board, their recommendations, would ultimately come to the board
All right.
anyway.
So if
Yeah.
the committee votes.
So if they had a
they-
tie, they would just carry forward a
Yeah.
tie
Alright.
recommendation.
And quite honestly, at this point in the work, there's really
Yeah.
not a lot to be voted
Mm.
on. The
Yeah.
public has voted on the project.
Yeah.
And so, at this time, it's really the implementation of the project. And this committee just becomes the oversight of that.
Okay,
But
thank you.
not necessarily like decision makers, right?
Yeah.
The board retains that authority.
So just
That's a
a
good question.
question, so there's 9 community members
Mhm.
and then 9, representation from either town, the town council or school board. Is that correct? That's sort of the,
And also school officials.
and school
So, yeah, for
officials,
example, right?
so sort of, yeah.
Well, I
okay.
have 3 principals, myself, Todd Jepson, who's
Got it.
our facilities
Mhm.
director, Nick Cliche, who's from
Community
Community
Services.
Services.
Yeah. So kind of a balance between public and private.
Correct,
Right.
exactly
okay,
that.
Got it.
So we get there by adding those 3. Yeah. Are there any other questions or thoughts? All right, do I have a motion to approve the updated governance document as presented?
Oh, moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? And that shows unanimous. Thank you so much. We will start calling tomorrow. The first meeting, just so everybody knows, is January 13th. Is that right? January 13th.
Yep.
So we'll start calling those community members tomorrow to let them know.
And just as a reminder, all of our meetings, even though there will be 18 seated members, they're all public meetings, and so anyone is welcome to attend. They will be available via Zoom for folks to watch as well. So, you know, it's a very public process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Okay, agenda item, our new 8.2 is the second, I'm gonna combine, I'm gonna bundle 8.2 and 8.3 because they go together. Hold on, do I have that right? And 4. Yes. Yes, okay. So 8.2 is the second reading of policy IJNDB, student and computer and internet use. The second reading of policy IJNDBR, student computer and internet use regulations. And second reading of policy IJNDBE, the student computer internet use acknowledgement form. So I know we have some questions on this. So just before I hand this over to you to tee up, just really quickly, when we, Freyla will talk about the changes that were made. Any questions you have on policy or the process, when I ask for questions, that would be the time. Any discussion or opinions, that would have to come after the motion. So just want to be sure we're all on the same page for this discussion. Okay? Turn it over to you, Freyla.
Thank you. So these policies, there's, and the next one is, it's very similar to the next one, although this one is applicable to students, the next one's applicable to employees. So this governs, students are using computer and internet resources that belong to the school. So typically right now we're using Chromebooks for the most part, I believe, across the district. And they're issued to students, at the beginning of the year. They also, the school provides internet access for students as well, so that they can access educational materials through that. These are the policies of the board that would govern that use of these devices. This policy is explicitly not applicable to personal devices that are brought in. That would include cell phones, personal laptops, or watches, or any other device that a student might use. These are just for the devices that belong to the school. Other than that, we have not made any changes between the first and second reading. So this is the policy that you saw in the first reading. It talks about how technology is a privilege, is not a right. The students are expected to abide by all the policies in here. The first policy is just the overarching guidance, which is how our policies work. That talks about how these are resources that belong to the school district. They're essentially being loaned to the student for their use. There's filtering technology that is used as part of the compliance with our policies, and that and it touches on a little bit of generative artificial intelligence, AI, and there's a policy that goes along with that, or actually I'll call it guidelines that go along with that. The second part of that is the actual process. So the first policy is overarching policy. The second is the regulations or the procedures that are applicable to computers and internet use. It lists all the acceptable uses, which are fairly common sense. It also lists explicitly prohibited uses, also common sense, but things that are illegal or inappropriate are not allowed to be accessed during on school internet and or on school devices. In fact, school devices are really to be limited for educational purposes only. And then a bunch of limitations on what you can do with the device. You can't download apps without permission. There's no vandalism. You have to protect your password. You can't share your password or allow others to access your systems under your accounts. Talks a little about compensation for damages, and then security, and goes through all of those, goes through all the rules, and at the end touches on Google Workspace, which is the software that is on most of these computers. Finally, the last form is a form that simply acknowledges that you as a student and or a parent has reviewed these policies and agree to abide by them, which is a precondition to being able to have the devices access to you. They reference a couple of policies that are available on the website, and I would just want to take a second. If people have questions about technology, if you go to the parents and family portion of the Scarborough website, there's an entire section devoted to student technology that talks about different parts of student technology. It goes through the Chromebook Care Use and Responsibilities Guide. That's the name of the guidelines that students are abide by that are rewritten every summer. So when we talk about the policies that are reviewed, these are the policies we're referring to. If you're a parent and a student, you would access that through PowerBooks. They're available and they're signed typically at the beginning of the year. The district has also put on some presentations that are available for the public having to do with how we monitor and filter with our devices. So when we ask about how our parental controls work or how our limitations work, there's a presentation available on, or there's a document available on that that's linked on the website. There's also a presentation available about how, and it's updated every year, I believe, about how public schools laptop information. There's a session available for parents if they're interested, and that document's also available on the website, as well as a link to how you get to PowerSchool or how to get onto PowerSchool in order to see the device agreement that hopefully everybody signed. And finally, the generative artificial intelligence, the AI policy. I know AI is a big topic of conversation in a lot of different areas. The school district has specific guidelines about appropriate use of AI that is also linked on this part of the website. So people who have questions, I encourage you to look at the website. There's a lot of information available there. And then, of course, if you have further questions, there's contacts on the website about how to get those questions answered.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
So I'm not sure if this is the right time to bring it up, but one of the things I've noticed is sort of the first policy, if you look at the timeline, it was adopted in 2001 and then revised about a decade later. And then you have sort of an anomaly, a year later at 2011, 2012, there's a back-to-back, and then now we're then 2013, and then now another decade. I wonder if there's a thought of including specific commitment to a regular review of this policy that is much shorter than a decade. I don't know if that was ever discussed when, in terms of including that in these policies.
We didn't discuss during the policy committee, and this would have been at the very beginning when Jen Day, I think, presented the entire thing. We all noted the date of the policy, and I think we all had opinions about how technology has changed since 2013. That was quite a while ago. And the desire to review this policy more frequently. And so I think that's on our radar. This policy specifically, I do believe there's an intent to review it again frequently. There's some information we're asking about. So I do believe that the intent is to put it on the policy agenda for this summer. I hesitate to put in a specific review timeline. We have a lot of policies on the website. I don't know exactly how many, but I hazard to say it's almost 100, I think, policies on the website. We resist putting specific restrictions for review or requirements in them. There are a couple of policies that we do have to review on a regular basis. There's a state statute for one. And so there are some that we have to, but it's first of all, I hesitate binding future boards. And second of all, it's hard to keep track of that information. There's many policies that in education move quickly. We actually reviewed a policy from 1981 a month ago, which things have changed a lot. It was a great year, but things have changed a lot since then. So I mean, Mitchell wasn't here with us, so I appreciate the 80s. But yes, we should review it more often. Putting that review into a policy binds a board and is also very difficult to keep track of. So we have found policies where there is intent to do things that if the institutional knowledge is not there, it may not get done. So that's just a point of information, not a.
Yeah, the other addition that I would just make to that is just the recognition that, yes, it has been 10 years. But during the past 10 years, we spent about 3 years dealing with a pandemic and coming back from that. And so timing is everything, right? And our policies, our policy work certainly did kind of go on hiatus a little bit during that time, especially as it related to expectations around students' use of technology. We had one year where, we were completely remote for a period of time. The next school year, we were completely hybrid for an entire year, and then we were coming back from that. And so, I think our committee has been really committed to trying to really make up for lost ground and lost time on policy development.
I would also note that the agreement that is signed by parents, it's not a policy of the board, but that is reviewed annually over the
Yes.
summer and revised every summer. So even though the board is not at our level changing the guidelines, the specific criteria and the specific rules around what you can and can't do with your Chromebook are being adjusted as by the technology, and I know the superintendent's involved as well, making
Right.
sure that any sort of problems that develop or so they can be responsive to issues on the ground. And I know that review happens annually every single year. So
Yeah.
and those really govern, those are the specific criteria and rules that are followed by students. So there is a way, and there's regular review and a way to make sure that the district's very responsive to problems on the ground. If the problems arise to a kind of a higher level view where we have policy considerations, AI would be one since 2013 would be a big change. But we had already implemented guidelines, complete lockdown to start. But once we went beyond that part, there are guidelines on the website that govern that. And so I think it demonstrates that even though the board may not taken it up, it doesn't mean that the district hasn't taken it up.
Yeah, just my concern is that, first as a new board member, I'm forced to sort of speak now or forever hold my peace, because once this vote happens, I really can't bring this back up. I have to accept the decision. That's one of the sort of protocols, under which we operate. So, the other thing is that because, I know there are good intentions and there's every intention to regularly review these policies, and that actually happens, de facto, even if not de jure or not, I think there are parents and there are constituencies in Scarborough that would like to have a voice on some of these on a more regular basis. And, technology changes very quickly. Apps change, new threats arise for our students in terms of, so I just think that, it would be nice to have some mechanism to have a regular sort of check-in on technology, computers, internet. And, it doesn't have to be, this by this date, but maybe some sort of goal that every 3 or 4 years, this gets looked at formally in some fashion.
I just two responses to that I think are important for policy. Well, if this policy gets approved tonight, it will become the policy. This policy is going to come up again on the agenda for the policy committee, which means it very likely may end up on the agenda for this board in the near future. There's it's in the meeting notes, it's a plan to review this again in a few months, or to review pieces of this in a few months, and to review specifically the elementary level use of Chromebooks at home. That's a topic that's outstanding. This committee did not want to hold up updating this policy for that piece, but it means that this policy will come back. And while we can't stop, whatever happens tonight won't change in the future unless or until the policy committee takes up the policy again and then presents a new draft, at which point there will be an ability to have input. And that's true in the future as well. If there's an issue that comes up, if the policy, if it needs to be brought to the policy committee, if the policy committee agrees to bring it up and to review it, it can be reviewed at any time, and any changes that are recommended will be brought forward. So this policy is a little different than some others because they're alive and they change. And so it's not now or never on any policy. Policies are living, breathing documents. And so they come up periodically. If the building governance document that came up is different, that we just voted on, is a little different because that is done. And so there are ways to bring it back, but it's very difficult and disfavored, like it's intentionally difficult to do that. And so if let's say we weren't unanimous, if somebody was upset with that vote, it's very difficult to bring that decision back over, because you don't want to disrupt work that's ongoing, that has been decided. And so decisions that are kind of a one-time decision that keeps going, is now or never in a way that policy never can be. Policy is always going to come back eventually. So.
Yeah, and I do, the other thing I would add is if there's something that you or any board member is interested in having on the agenda, that we do have a policy that provides for that. So you can always ask for something to be
Yeah,
added to the agenda.
Yeah, and additionally, I would also say, and I think, returning board members could speak to this, is we do have our IT director present to the board on an annual basis. And that is really a very informative workshop. So for example, last year, she did a big workshop on cybersecurity and the concerns around student data privacy, et cetera. And so those are conversations that are continuing to happen. And then I would also just point out that all of the work that's done around policy is a very public process. All of our meetings are posted online, so folks can take a look at those agendas. We have 2 readings of every policy here. And so I think there is a high value on community feedback and community input. And it certainly has been my observation in the time that I've worked here at the district level, that our boards really are in tune with the feedback that they hear, and then, check that information and see how that policy adoption happens. I will make one last comment. I said the last comment was the last comment, but I will say one other thing, and that really is just remembering that policy is the work of the board. You're setting, here's how we're going to operate, and then how that gets implemented and the day-to-day application of that is what you charge us to do, right? And so you are, charge me as superintendent to ensure that our staff is carrying that out in day-to-day practice.
And no, agreed, and I'm not trying to
No, no,
tell you
no.
what to do, but that's why I
Right.
think my weighing in now is important, because I care about the policy, right? That's where I
Absolutely.
have a legitimate right to weigh in, so.
Yeah.
So another sort of just quickly, because Freyla and I had a phone conversation, so most of these issues, but the other second issue I wanted to bring up is that, I know we had a pretty rigorous process for the cell phone policy use. At some point in the future, when this policy comes back up, I really would like to see an equally rigorous sort of engagement on, on the computer use, on things like parents being able to opt out, on, the AI issue, and digital citizenship. I know it's already in the curriculum, but maybe explicitly including it in the policy, things like that. So I'll just leave it at that. I just wanted to weigh in on some of my concerns about the computer and internet policy.
Just really, I wanted to provide you a little bit of information. So the way that, if we take 2 steps back, we did hear from the union, the teachers union, that there was an interest in hearing about or attending policy meetings. And so Freyla from that point on has been sending, most of the time, she's sending the agenda for the policy meeting out to the union so that they have access. And if they are interested in attending, they are absolutely more than welcome to do so. The public participation that happened around the cell phone policy is not, I just want to be really crystal clear here. We did not invite anybody to the table. We generally, as a rule of thumb, have not invited the public to the table. Whom we invite to the table are our stakeholders within the district. So for example, I'll use a totally different example. We're in the process of a naming facilities policy. And so whom we brought to the table was our athletic director and town council policy, members of their policy committee. So for technology, we bring Jen Day to the table. When we are talking about the high school for the cell phone policy, we brought the principal to the table. So those are the people we come. So when we have a lot of attendance from community members, it's not because we've reached out and asked them to come join us. It's because they're following along on their own. And then they decide to come to the meetings. So I'm just, I'm a little hesitant for us to start inviting interest groups to our meetings because I think what we can very easily get into is that we are representative of all of Scarborough. And my worry is that we invite one interest group and then we have another interest group that says, well, why didn't you invite me? And why didn't I get an invitation, a personal invitation to attend? And so this gets very, very sticky very quickly. So that would be my only other piece.
I also want to respond a little bit. So in policy, I've had the benefit of moving through a few policies that have been somewhat controversial and have garnered a lot of public interest. And then most of our policies are boring. I love the procurement manual review. We respond to the response. So our meetings are published the same every time. Our process starts the same every time, and then we're responsive to the people who do show up. So I want to make sure we're talking about the same table. So we don't invite people into the committee to present, except for unless they're part of the district, really to provide the information that we need to make the decision. But we certainly have had and people interested in different policies. And that's one of the reasons why we're so slow with adoption. So it takes at least a couple of, there's no way to get a policy through without a couple of months at least. And so when people from the public want to engage with us, we really will meet them. And there are two policies that I'm thinking of since I've started that have been somewhat a big topic of interest in the community. When the community responds, we slow down, and we go very, very slowly and methodically through the process. So that's why for cell phones, for example, I think it was close to 9 months. And we had multiple community forums and outreach. We had a lot of interest. We moved our meetings down here so we could have more public comment. We always allow public comment at meetings, so the public is invited to present at that point. But we don't look for, we don't go out in the community and look for input because we don't actually know who might be interested. But if people are interested, we absolutely will meet them. And so we really let the community drive that. So if the community wants to be part of a policy, if they email, show up to the committee meeting, talk to one of us. I mean, there's ways to reach us, and we can, and we have slowed that down to have full community engagement. We're not going to go out and seek it if there's no interest. And I've seen policies that have a lot of interest. I've seen policies that had a little bit of interest, and then most policies have almost no interest. And this policy has not garnered one email, which is to me a sign that this policy is not causing concern, alarm, or is it not that people aren't interested in the internet? They are with their children. Like we know that, but this particular policy isn't causing them to need to come to the table in the same way that some other policies have.
Thank you for that. That was very useful. And just a point of clarification, there was a workshop or forum of some sort on the cell phone policy that I just want to know sort of how that happened, if that was not, so that was, I guess I would consider that public consultation, but
It happened because we had, to Freyla's point, we had an overwhelming response to that policy. So we were regularly at our policy meetings taking 45 to an hour long public comment at each meeting. We had a massive student interest. We had a massive staff interest. We had massive parent interest on both sides. We had parents that were interested in banning cell phones. We had parents that absolutely were against us banning cell phones. And so that is why we were trying to really work to bring those different groups of people in one space. We do, we are planning to have a parent workshop in April. We're also planning to have a workshop in April. So there's going to be 2 more opportunities to really talk through tools, things that in April, the workshop that we have is the district curriculum use of electronic devices. That is our workshop topic. And then the community forum afterward is going to be more of a parent educational tool. What are some of the tools and things available to help parents as they try to navigate electronic devices for their own child's use? So we do have 2 upcoming topics on that. Also, the other thing I will add in is that this board, when we set our goals, one of the goals that was set was one of the things that we discussed was a real interest in involving the community a little bit more. With the loss of the leader, it has become a little bit more difficult to communicate. And how do we meet the community members where they're at? Instead of telling them, watch our meetings, do this, what is another way to engage? And so that we changed the name of that committee to the Community Outreach Committee. I know you're a part of, and so you know this, but this is going to be a really good opportunity. We really charged that committee with finding new ways of reaching the public. And so I think that, I'm really interested in what the committee comes up with. So I think that's another avenue as well. Yeah.
No, thank you for answering all my questions. And as I told Freyla, we had this discussion on the phone, but that I wanted to bring it up publicly as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right, do I have a motion to approve 8.2, the second reading of policy IJNDB, student computer and internet use, the second reading of policy IJNDBR, the student computer and internet use regulations, and the second reading of policy IJNDBE, student computer internet use acknowledgement form?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? And that shows unanimous. Was your hand? Okay, thank you. It shows unanimous. Thank you. All right, I'm going to bundle 5, 6, and 7. So this is the second reading of policy GCSA, employee use of school use computer devices and the internet. Second reading of policy GCSAR, employee computer and internet use regulations. And the second reading of policy GCSAE, employee computer internet use acknowledgement form.
I'm not going to spend much time on this policy. It's very similar to the changes that were made to the student use of school issued computers and the internet policy. It's just in a different section because I govern students and she governs staff or employees. So I'm happy to take any questions, but this is the same, the overarching principles of computer use and the internet, the regulations that we are imposing on them, including the things that are approved uses and prohibited uses. And finally, the form that all staff sign as an acknowledgement that they've received these rules, regulations, and policy, and that they agree to abide by it as a condition of using the technology on the campus.
All right, are there any questions? All right, do I have a motion to approve the second reading of policy GCSA, employee use of school use computers, devices, and the internet? The second reading of policy GCSAR, employee computer and internet use regulations, and the second reading of policy GCSAE, employee computer internet use acknowledgement form.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? And that shows unanimous. Thank you so much. 8.8 is the second reading of policy EBBD, temperature standards for schools.
This was fantastic policy work. If I may say so myself, I love this policy. So
I
as
do
you,
not love this policy. That is
I- well, no, I really maligned this policy last time around and called it arbitrary and
Mhm.
capricious, and I stand by that comment. This is required that we pass a policy that takes into account temperature standards for schools. As I said before, the numbers that we chose were absolutely arbitrary, and then we chose the most absurd numbers we could. That felt really weird, I think, which was part of the discussion for the policy members on the committee. We struggled a lot with this policy. And then we found that thanks to the efforts of our fantastic superintendent, the Biddeford had already done all the work on the policy. So we scrapped our entire draft policy and looked at their policy. And then we decided we didn't like all their policies. So we brought the parts of the policy that we had worked on that we liked into it. But we kept the part they liked. So the issue that we really had was that none of us knew what should be the right temperature. We had Todd Jepson, who's the head of our facilities, who is actually the expert in our buildings, and has demonstrated great competence at maintaining the buildings at the appropriate temperature. This range is determined by OSHA, who are experts in what workplace safety should be. And so that is what we've pegged the numbers to. So they're no longer random. They now have some sort of basis. But it's still the same, that it authorizes the superintendent to take action if there is extreme temperatures, both high or low, to keep our students safe and our staff healthy and the environment appropriate. I still don't know that we need this policy, but we have to have it. So here you go.
All right, are there any questions?
Yes. Did you make any effort to reach out to Goldilocks? To find out what was just right?
So we went with 50 to 99 degrees. We figured.
You know who we
could
made an
capture
effort?
everybody.
We made an effort. We reached out to Todd Jepson. That's who we reached out to. Yes. All right. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the second reading of policy EBBD temperature standards for schools?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right, that shows unanimous. Thank you so much. Agenda item 9.0 is new business. 9.1 are appointments. 9.1.1 is the interim Blue Point principal.
Yes. I am very pleased this evening to bring forward to you a nomination for our interim Blue Point principal. As you know, our former principal resigned, and we have been very blessed to have both Ray Grogan and also Katie Vitro at the helm, pinch hitting and sharing responsibility for day-to-day operations and oversight of Blue Point. That being said, they are both more than full-time professionals in our district with their own sets of job responsibilities. And so we really wanted to explore some more permanency for the rest of the year. And as we processed through that as a team, what we really landed on was that there is a lot of expertise and capacity within Blue Point School itself. And, you know, not unlike the conversation that I had with you earlier this fall when we were contemplating a shift that we needed to make at the high school, we really applied the same kind of thinking in this situation because we certainly recognize that anytime we bring a professional, even a highly skilled professional from outside of the district, there is a period of time that it takes any professional to learn the ins and outs of our school, learn what our policies and procedures are and how that guides our work. And as we consider the timing of where we are in the year, it really struck us that we should be looking within our own ranks at our own expertise. I think you've heard me say multiple times that I have a strong belief in elevating those people who come to our table and have expertise. And so as such, this evening, I am nominating Jillian Daigle, who is with us this evening, to serve as interim Blue Point principal for the remainder of the 25-26 school year. Jillian has earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in 2002 from the University of Southern Maine. She's also earned a Master of Science in Education with a major in Teaching and Learning in 2009. And then she earned her Certificate of Advanced Graduate Study in Educational Leadership in 2014. And at that point, she earned her principal certification. She is in her 19th year. Hard to believe that when I read that number, as an elementary educator. And prior to her start here in Scarborough in 2018 at Blue Point, she served as a primary level teacher at Hollis Elementary School for 11 years. And during that time, she also worked in the capacity of lead teacher. So she definitely has had some great experiences to date in terms of leadership. And we are really just over the moon about this appointment. I think that we will see that staff and families at Blue Point will also support this, and really, you know, it's a great opportunity for the school to continue the great work and direction that they're already taking.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the interim Blue Point principal as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? And that is unanimous. Congratulations.
Excellent.
All right, agenda item 9.2 is the Blue Point School donation approval request.
Yes, so this memo is from Ray. Would you like to read it? It is yours.
The Blue Point School, we have received our Hannaford Helps funds of $918. And we would like to use it to help offset any financial needs from financial hardships of any of the students we have for different activities or different things to help access the education at Blue Point School, and the other half will be used to support some learning activities that are outside of the classroom.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the Blue Point School donation donation as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? And that shows unanimous. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sure.
Before we move on to the next motion, before we move on to the next motion, does it make sense to do a motion to alleviate the 9:30 deadline just in
Yes.
case we needed to?
Yes,
Before we have a problem.
I was going to suggest that as well, so good minds. Just because we are going into an executive session that might take us beyond 9:30, I will entertain a motion to relieve us of our 9:30 obligation to end the meeting.
I make a motion to suspend the rule that no action shall be taken by the board after 9:30 PM.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? That shows unanimous. All right, we have an executive, so do I have a motion to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056D for the purpose of discussion of labor contracts and proposals and meetings between a public agency and its negotiators, the SEA, to return to public session?
Oh,
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right, thank you so much. And as a reminder, we will only be adjourning in person. So thank you to those who tuned in and happy holidays. And you too.